Good morning. I am so in admiration of the sunflowers on the altar. Isn't Kansas beautiful? As we were driving in this morning, I noticed a whole valley full of these very natural Kansas sunflowers, and they're so pretty. How are you all today? Great. It's good to see you on this day. This is our time for sharing and announcements. And we have 2 mics waiting to hear what you have to say.
Hi, this is Barbara Wagner. I'd like to introduce a friend of mine. This is Shelley Nichols, and you brought a friend. Who's your friend?
My mom.
Oh, your mom. Hi. It's nice to meet you. Shelley has some wonderful cinnamon rolls that she would like to donate for the Haiti Water Project. And it's just donation, okay? And we have some that are pumpkin, and we have some that are regular. And if you had her rolls before, if you had them 2 Wednesdays ago, they are very good and well worth the money. So, and we're glad to have you both here.
Give bigly.
Francis Hendricks. I have an announcement also of an upcoming Haiti Water Project. In the spring, Leroy Weddle and Bud Taylor and I started planning for a benefit golf tournament to benefit the Haiti Water Project. That tournament will be October the 11th. If you are a golfer, you're invited to participate in that. But if you're not a golfer, what we need is your help in contacting people that you know who play golf to encourage them to be part of that tournament. There will be details and information in the next Sunday's bulletin, and we'll have a poster up at that time as well.
I heard my bones creaking. I'm Miriam Hoover, and I am more than delighted to have my nieces and their spouses, some of them, here this morning. They come from Missouri, from New Mexico, and Colorado. And I'm just very happy to have them here. And I think I said I was proud. If I didn't, I am. And I think it says in the Bible something about pride goes before a fall. I hope that doesn't really happen. Where is she?
Good morning. My name is Phil Stover. At 10:22, 56 years ago, a bomb went off in Birmingham, killing 4 little girls.
I'm Rita Beam. I have 2 nieces here from Nebraska, Lucy and Barbara.
This is a popular day for nieces, I guess. My nieces are here from New Zealand. Wendy and Jan.
I won't introduce my niece, but I do have a couple of announcements that I want to bring your attention to regarding opportunities to learn and participate around climate care and creation care. One is, and this was in our that has been in our e-newsletter the last few weeks regarding Ventures, which is a web-based educational program for lay people sponsored by McPherson College. And we have some fantastic courses lined up this year, including multiple courses addressing creation care. And the first will be presented by our own Kirk McGregor, who will be sharing on the topic God's relation to the natural world and creation care. It's a free webinar, and it will be Saturday morning, September 27, from 9 a.m. to noon. And a group will gather here in the church in the multi-purpose room, I believe, in the education building. And if you prefer, you can register on your own and watch online from wherever you are, but feel free to join that group in the education building. The second announcement is regarding the global climate strikes that will be happening September 20 through 27. And this is a student-led movement that was sparked by climate activist Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old from Sweden who has inspired youth all over the world to speak up about their concerns around the climate. So this Friday, September 20, 3 days before the UN Climate Summit in New York City, millions of youth and adults will be participating in over 800 events in over 100 countries, demanding world governments to take transformative action. The Wichita Global Climate Strike will be held this Friday evening at 7 p.m. for about an hour in Old Town Square in Wichita. I plan to be attending, and I invite others to join me. So I will be down in the foyer after church, and if you have any questions, want to learn more, want to join me, and want to talk about carpooling, that's where I'll be. Thank you.
Miriam, my bones are cracking. So you're saying for the next 40 years, my bones are going to be cracking? Lamont Rothrock from the Cedars, just to give you an opportunity, to attend. We're going to be televising some of the football games and volleyball games. And next Saturday, we're going to have the football game over at 6 o'clock in the Wellness Center, and just bring your own snacks. But if those of you from the community want to come over, we usually have a small group that enjoy the games.
And if you can't really see it from where you are, the water is running at the pump. Praise God. Let us begin worship.
Good morning. My name is Janelle Fleury-Schrock, and I'll be bringing our creation care focus. This morning, we're focusing on the progress that we've made in our congregation in supporting the Haiti Water Project. Through this initiative, all year we have worked together to provide more reliable water sources for people in an area of the world where safe drinking water is not accessible for all. Here in McPherson, Kansas, clean, drinkable water flows from our faucets and hoses on demand. It can be easy to take that for granted. When I was in Brethren Volunteer Service in Minden, Germany, I lived with a woman named Reinhilde. Reinhilde did not take water for granted. When she was a child, following World War II, her family moved from former Prussia, eastern part of Germany, western Poland, to western Germany. And they lived with a family, and they hauled all of their water out from a pump. And in talking with Reinhilde, when I lived with her, she would describe that whenever they went to gather water, they tried as best they could to use that water 10 or 12 times in various ways throughout the household before they returned it to the earth. Although Reinhilde was, at this time in the early 2000s, living with abundant clean water sources, she still did her best to conserve water, being mindful of her past and being mindful of people in the world who do not have access to clean water. She did this in a number of ways, and she was very clear that I should abide by these by these same patterns. There was a 2 or 3 gallon pink bucket that lived in the shower, and so we would collect our water. When you're waiting for the shower water to warm up, we would collect that water and put it by the toilet, and then flush the toilet with that water. Washing dishes, we also used the rinse water for watering plants. She found very creative ways to still be very mindful of her water usage, and that was something that I really admired, even though she had abundant water. Even as we work to make good water available for those who don't have it, it is also very important that we preserve and conserve this precious and limited resource of fresh water in our own community. Do you remember earlier this year when the city of McPherson announced a 72-hour limit on water usage due to excessive rain combined with issues at our water treatment facility? Many of us, unaccustomed to thinking about such things, suddenly found ourselves looking for creative ways to cook, clean, bathe, use the bathroom without sending any water down the drain. Fortunately, the issue was resolved much sooner than the allotted 72 hours, but how many of us created a contingency plan after that event for the next time that might happen? There are many ways we can conserve water. Using low flush toilets, not flushing the toilet every time, taking fewer and shorter showers, turning the water off while brushing our teeth, reusing gray water for watering plants inside and out, collecting rainwater in a rain barrel for watering the garden, planting native plants that thrive with less watering. As you go through your week, I'd ask you to be mindful of the following questions. What are some ways that you already conserve water? What are some other conservation habits that you might incorporate, both here in our church and at home? And as you think about those questions, I will read a blessing from John Donahue called In Praise of Water. Let us bless the grace of water, the imagination of the primeval ocean where the first forms of life stirred and emerged to dress the vacant earth with warm quilts of color. The courage of a river to continue belief in the slow fall of ground, always falling farther toward the unseen ocean. Let us bless the humility of water, always willing to take the shape of whatever otherness holds it. The buoyancy of water, stronger than the deadening downward drag of gravity. The innocence of water, flowing forth without thought of what awaits it. The refreshment of water, dissolving the crystals of thirst. Water, voice of grief, cry of love in the flowing tear. Water, vehicle and idiom of all the inner voyaging that keeps us alive. Blessed be water, our first mother.
Thank you, Ada, for sharing this morning. We appreciate it. Please rise and join in our unison call to worship and opening song. God of blessing, we come with responsibility to help others because so many resources are in our hands. God of inspiration, We come with gratitude for so many who have been generous to those they may never meet. God of empowerment, we come asking for boldness of vision and commitment for wisdom and courage. God of love, we come asking for your grace as we answer your call to serve. Please be seated.
This is going to be just what it says it is, a quick overview of what this visit to Haiti was all about. Several of us went on July 19 to 23, well actually 24, but I'll tell you about that later. We did a lot of things. We took field trips each morning, visiting churches, clinics, looking at water projects, learning about agricultural projects. On day one, our field trip was to Canaan. You might think it's Canaan, but it's Canaan, where we learned about some of the women's projects that are designed to help women make an income. And we learned about a little bit about medical clinics. And Dr. Marla Olaminik also had opportunity to join one of the clinics that are sponsored on a more or less monthly basis all across that part of Haiti. And in particular, we heard about a number of well projects. This one at Canaan, very important to the community. They're very grateful for it. Where you, on the left, where you cannot see it, the reverse osmosis equipment was to be installed, I think, within the year. As we were spending time there in Canaan, Noah Wilkers made some friends. On the right, you notice that the water doesn't run to the door, doesn't run to a faucet on the sink. You still have to go and get it, but it's a matter of walking a few blocks rather than a mile or two. On Sunday, we divided our group, sent our group to 3 churches. We provided the speakers at each of those services. This one was at Marine, where a well had just recently been installed, for which they were very grateful. This building was constructed to house the reverse osmosis equipment, which was to have been installed very soon. On day 3, we went to La Ferrière, Church of the Brethren, focused on what's being done with mothers, which is a very broad aspect of the program, very important, particularly helping with mother's care to help overcome the rather terrible infant mortality rate, teaching them about nutritious meals that can be easily provided. And on the right there, you see a picture of Noah and his father with some blankets. Their grandma, living in Lynn, Kansas, heard about the trip, and she and her quilt club, their local church, provided some baby blankets, which they took along and donated to the project. We saw lots of things at this particular location. The sand filter, which is used several places there, handling often water coming off of the roof of buildings. There was an avocado tree. We looked at a lot of conservation and reforestation projects. Lots of farming done on hills, and that's a rough place to farm, and so they were working at various methods for managing that. Day 4, we took a trip to the earthquake memorial, remembering the earthquake of 2010, when nearly 300,000 people were killed, many of them, incidentally, buried here in a mass grave. And finally, we visited this site near the guest house, the headquarters of the Church of the Brethren, where there's a new church building and also a well, which you notice has rather obvious connections to the McPherson Church of the Brethren. Actually, a little more obvious than some of us thought was necessary. But they were very grateful to the church. Came to the guest house to present a plaque showing their gratitude that you see there on the worship center. And there they are presenting that to us before we left. Travel was an interesting experience, probably educational as much as anything in Haiti. You don't really need stoplights. You don't really need lanes. You just go where there's room. Some of the roads were relatively smooth. Some of them not so much. And when you're working on the street, you don't really need a barricade. People will figure out that they have to go around it. Lots of open air shopping. You can find literally anything for sale on the streets, particularly in Port-au-Prince. But in the rural areas, here was a fruit stand with fresh fruit along the road. Every afternoon and evening, we were back at our hotel where we ate our meals, we heard presentations, we discussed what we saw and learned in the morning. We got acquainted with each other, as well as with the Haitian leaders who spent the entire week with us. And we relaxed and recreated as well. Ate our meals, not at all being deprived in any way. We heard presentations from a number of people, some of them more famous than others. including reports from the 4 Church of the Brethren pastors and leaders in the Haitian church who spent the entire week with us. And in spite of it being busy, we still found time to relax. Marla Ullum heard happy birthday being sung in 3 languages as she celebrated her something over 39th birthday. And some for recreation turned to art projects. You notice the artistic intensity that is expressed here. A toast sculpture. Very proud of that, obviously. And here we all were, all the Haitian leaders who were with us for the week, our group from Christian Church of the Brethren, as well as several others from around the denomination, particularly Eastern churches. And that should be the end, but I promised I'd tell you why it ended on the 24th instead of the 23rd. Very simply, Delta didn't get their airplane to Haiti in time for us to make our connection back in Atlanta, so many of us, probably most of us, got to spend the night in in Atlanta. But we're all back safe and sound, and we're very grateful for that and for the trip.
choir is being seated, would the children come forward for the children's time?
Okay, does that work? Oh yeah, hi. Good morning, it's nice to see everybody. Well, I thought since we were talking about Haiti, actually Catherine thought, because Catherine's the mastermind, that we would talk to our friend Paul this morning, and maybe we could ask some really important questions about what he did and what he's going to talk about and what they were talking about. Did you guys watch the presentation and listen to the music? Oh, how you doing, Thea? You want your mommy? Yeah. She's, you know what? She's right there. Do you want me to help you walk her? Okay. Hey, Paul, maybe you could introduce yourself while we take care of Thea. It's gonna be okay. I have that effect on a lot of kids. It's true.
I kind of felt like crying too, but
I know.
I'm Paul.
It's Paul.
Actually, I know all of you anyway because I've been up here before.
Yeah.
Yep, you don't know me.
I mean, everybody knows,
I
right?
slammed my butt on the stoop.
Good morning.
Hi, Bricken.
Okay.
Hey, so Paul, basically, what made you think, you know what, there's a lot of people in Haiti that don't have water, and maybe I could do something about it?
Oh, okay, so
deep questions.
I went to Haiti.
Yeah.
And it's sort of different there. You know how we're here in this church building, and if you have to go to the bathroom, there's a bathroom down the hall.
Okay.
If you're thirsty, there's a water fountain. But in Haiti, the churches don't have running water. The homes usually don't have running water. And if you're really thirsty, sometimes you just go out to a creek and you drink water right out of the creek, which might sound like fun, but sometimes that can make you sick. And if you need to go to the bathroom, sometimes you just go out into the woods, which doesn't even sound like fun. But sometimes there's no woods out there. It's just you have to go, and there's no toilets. And it's so different, and it sounds like not a lot of fun, and sometimes it isn't a lot of fun. And I thought, actually not me, but a lot of people thought, hey, could we do something different? Could we help people out? And someone got the idea of digging some wells so that they have running water, and that was sort of the beginning of it.
That's really cool. How long does it take to get to Haiti? Because I don't know if we always understand that. Like it said, you got stuck in Atlanta, but like physically for you to get to Haiti, how long did that take?
Well, if I was gonna walk, it would take forever.
Wow.
Because it's all the way across part of the Caribbean. And so you have to fly, you have to get an airplane. And even then, it can be 6 to 12 hours, depending on how many places you have to stop. It takes all day to get to Haiti.
Whole day to get there, wow. Do you guys have some questions? Any questions about what they did? What'd you do while you were there? Did you see any kids? What did kids like? Oh, Brecken, you got a question?
Did you drink Indian water?
Indian water?
Yeah, I drank some.
I don't know what Indian water is. They drink whatever they can get a hold of. So if there's dirty water, they'll drink dirty water. If there's clean water, they love clean water. But
Wow. What do kids do for fun in Haiti? That would be a good thing. Do they get to have a lot of fun?
they play, usually outside. They run around and they chase each other, and they play games, pretty much like kids anywhere. But they don't play like video games because there's not a lot of money in Haiti, so people don't buy things. They play with what's outside.
That sounds fun. Any other questions? Well, Romans 12, it says love in action. And I was just thinking, we talked a couple weeks ago about what we can do. What can we do here at the McPherson Church of the Brethren to help? Especially if you're a kid. Do you have any suggestions or ideas? Do you guys have any suggestions or ideas? Because it takes a long time to get to Haiti, and I imagine it's a little expensive, so you probably can't go there every day. Anything we can do? Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Staring vaguely. What about those? What are all those things up there? What are those water drops?
Water.
How did we get those water drops?
Maybe it's
Paper.
rainy.
Yeah, maybe paper. Do they symbolize things?
Maybe potatoes.
Maybe potatoes. Those are raindrops for when we've helped raise money. Now, Isla gave me a great example this morning. When she saw cinnamon rolls, she nagged me to get some to raise money for Haiti Water Project.
Good job, Isla.
Yeah, so you can all nag your parents to get cinnamon rolls and nag these people too to start raising money. Any other questions for Paul? You guys, forget you guys don't always wake up until about 20 minutes after we've done this.
No one has better cinnamon rolls than Grandma.
True. Okay, well, that worked. That went. Any other questions for Paul today? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, head back to your parents and start nagging them for cinnamon rolls. Thanks, Paul.
There's nothing like children's laughter and honesty in church. That's good. Sometimes when we're out and about and we're contributing in the world and we're making a difference, we forget what grounds us. And so I invite you into the scripture of Romans today. As the new Christians, we're trying to figure out who they are, what they are about, and what God was calling them to. And the Romans scripture certainly reminds us what grounds us and why we do what we do. Love must be sincere, so hate what is evil. Cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves, and never be lacking in zeal. But keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality.
Test. All right, as Ira's making his way down. So my name's Dustin Wilgers. I was the youth team representative that went down to Haiti and had the wonderful opportunity to share this transformational experience with 4 of our youth that got to go along with us. And so I'm going to be kind of the leader, and I have a couple questions for them to share their answers with you about some of the things that they got, that they brought back with them from Haiti. So the first question was, what do you remember most about your trip to Haiti and when you came back? So you can pass the mic around and answer.
For me, the thing that my biggest takeaway and what I remember most is the people. Wherever you went, I remember kindness. I mean, you walk down the street and you smile at somebody and you show them kindness, they'll show you kindness in return almost immediately, whereas many times I feel like here in the States, you're walking down the street, you smile at someone, they may scowl at you and not trust you. And so it was a clear change and a very welcome change to have that kind of community and kindness shown in a split second.
The same thing was what I was going to say. I remember the people.
What I remember most was like the churches and how they sang a lot, and all the people, they were all so nice and stuff.
I remembered, so there's construction everywhere, but like they're building things. So it's a very resilient country, and they're actively building things everywhere, which is awesome.
So one of the things that I remember most, I like to focus a lot on the environment. So I remember the duality of the environment and the kind of the crisis that they're facing. I remember the beauty of Haiti and all the natural environments and all the things that we saw there. But I also remember the degradation of that and the trash that we saw everywhere. And so yeah, all of the things that they're facing and deforestation was another one that I was thinking of. So issues that they're facing as well as the beauty of their country, kind of that duality struck me. Another thing I wanted you guys to reflect on was, what is one thing you learned on your trip to Haiti?
One thing that I learned, or that really stuck with me, was, and I'm going to use the same word as Dustin here, was duality of what was before tragedy occurred and what is, of the infrastructure of what was previously there that is half destroyed and still remaining in many ways, but then also all of the new infrastructure and new technology. And so there is a very clear duality of those two things within the country. Everywhere you go, you see it pretty much.
I learned more about the water projects because I already knew a little bit about them, but it helped me get a better perspective.
The thing I learned the most is how much you need to focus on what kind of water you're drinking instead of like just drinking out of the faucet and brushing your teeth. You need like bottled water.
I learned I learned my own reaction to watching people drink bottled water, because here it's sort of like, why are you wasting the plastic? And there it's, if you tell someone to stop drinking bottled water, you're telling them to stop drinking clean water. So I learned about myself going to Haiti.
So one of the things I remember, or I learned most about, is how important what we're doing here and raising money for these projects are for them. The installation of wells and the health clinics, they are using it all over the place. But another thing I learned was that there is so much more to do. When I see some of the issues being addressed by the current projects we face that we're doing, there's more. The latrines and the water sanitation and the trash and the plastic problem. There's so much more left to do, even though the stuff that we're doing is really important. We have a couple minutes left before ours is kind of up, so I'll open it up. If anybody has a question for one or more of our youth about their experience, I'll be happy to share that, or they can answer that. Anybody have a question for them? Yeah.
On the slide, we saw your picture with a couple of friends, quote friends. I just wondered how that happened. Was that out of the blue? Did you initiate something? Did they? Was that in a church? What was that?
Here, I'll let Noah reflect on that and see what his thoughts on are. There you go.
So like they saw our group, and so they just started following us to see what we were doing and stuff. And then they went to the well, and then I was like, "You want to take a picture with me?" And they were fine with it.
Yeah, I would say that the youth were very interested in what we were doing, and wherever we were walking around in that Canaan area, they were with us, and they tagged on to Noah's heels quite a bit, very interested in what he was doing and why he was there. And every time like when we weren't paying attention to what they were talking about, and you'd turn around and give them some attention, their smiles and their faces just lit up. So it was kind of fun to see that interaction. Anything else? One more question. Was there school in session? No, I believe they were on summer break. Just like we never saw, school buses are going around. And I think we asked the pastors around there, and I think they were on break, just like our kids were.
I just wondered if anybody had something that they'd like to share about any permanent change that you think maybe has happened to you because of your visit.
Does anybody have a response to that? Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily that I had a permanent change happen, but it definitely reinvigorated me and encouraged me, because seeing what we have already done and how much more we can do, because in day to day there, many changes have happened and a lot has changed, but by our standards here of what we are capable of and what resources we have done very little. And that very little has already made such a great change. And so I'm encouraged to see what we could actually do with what we have.
Anybody else? All right. All right. Thank you for letting us share.
I just want to acknowledge, too, that we're missing 2 of our youth that went along because they're in college. So Laura Olaminik went, and she's in school at North Manchester, and Kaylee Penner went, and she's finishing her senior year at Juniata. So those are the other 2 that make up the crowd that went.
Good morning. As part of our experience in Haiti, for me, Haiti was about building relationship, creating partnerships. And one way we did that was we went to several of the area churches. And when I say area, I mean big area. We drove an hour, over an hour in many instances to get to church. Church didn't always start on time. They waited for us to get there. People were very patient, and they filled their patience, I think, with singing. So we went to, I believe, 3 different locations, and we split up into groups, and each group then went and experienced a worship service. So my questions to this esteemed group here, how did you experience Haitian worship? What did that mean to you?
Compared to what we experience here most Sundays, my overall impression was that worship is far less formal and much more spontaneous. We arrived at our worship service after it had begun. So if you can imagine us here right now just sort of stopping and welcoming some late arrivers. And I happened to be one of the first in the door. And I think I was accompanied by people who are pastors like Leroy, Chris, So there I was, and I got marched right up front and seated right here in this type of situation. So less formal, more spontaneous, very welcoming.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was filled with a lot of spirit. I felt the worship service. It would have been really nice to know what they were saying and singing, but then that was one of the difficulties. One of the barriers was the language barrier. Although we did have an interpreter, but they didn't interpret the songs. But anything that was spoken, they interpreted. So we got to hear that. But very welcoming. I guess I'd like to just share an incident that happened in our group. We went to Okju, and I was with Marty, and I also got to set up behind. It was just a row of benches like this, and the music leader was up there, but the rest of it was filled up with our group. But when we got there, on the way up, we had one person in our group who got car sick, and really severely car sick, and she just barely made it there. She got right out of the van, took about 10 steps, kneeled down, and threw up. During that time, the pastor of the church came out to welcome us, and his wife, I think it was his wife, followed, and they said hello, and then they noticed this young lady that was on the ground, and they walked over to her, and they knelt down, put their hands on her, and prayed for her, which I thought that just impressed me greatly that they would do that.
I had the advantage of I had been there once before, so I know what was going to happen at the churches, how they wanted everybody in the front. So I got at the very end of the line, and somebody said, go up front, and I said, no, I want in the congregation. My favorite thing there was holding the children. I couldn't speak to them, but I held them, and they all came to me. Nobody cried, I want my mommy, I want my daddy. They just went, and they sat very nicely in church. The church was completely filled. They had Sunday school before church, so the church was completely full. And I found one seat, and I thought before that the men didn't like the women to sit beside them, but as I walked through the congregation, the man said, sit here. So I sat right next to him, and it was really a welcoming thing. The other thing that really impressed me was how the people there just took care of their children. I mean, and a lady, if she saw somebody crawling and wanting to crawl around, she'd walk over to them right away and sit them down, sit with them. And it was just so interesting how each of the adults felt like all those children were theirs. And I was able to feel that pretty quickly, too. Bob Dell listed me as the grandma of the tour because I think I held a lot of the children, and I really appreciated it. And Emily has more, so I'm not going to say all of it.
Well, we went to the church that was in Marine, Haiti, is the one that we attended. And there were at least, did someone say already that there were 100 people at least there? We didn't count. But it was really, really tight. I mean, it was filled at that time. They asked us to sit up the steps and be on the area like this behind their pulpit. The group that was with us, all except for Beverly, since she wanted to be there and be able to be near the children and so forth. But we did, but very shortly after we sat up there, they came with these bottles of water because it was very, very hot. They had windows, but all of them had no glass in them. And so it was really hot, and I could see some of the women and others in the congregation who were wiping their heads and putting things on top of their heads so they had it right there to wipe, because it was really hot at that time. They had just finished their Sunday school as, did you say that, Beverly? Okay. We haven't gotten together on this, so we don't know who has said what. The choir sat in front of us. They were down a couple of steps, And the women were wearing red hats and red shoes, very bright red hats and very bright red shoes and white dresses. And they really looked lovely, the ones in the choir. There were about 5 men, but I think there were close to 20 women that were in the choir. And they did a lovely job of singing. We couldn't understand any of it, but it was really beautiful. It was really nice. One of the ministers in our group did the preaching and the sermon with the help of a translator that was there. The congregation seemed very enthusiastic. The children paid attention. It was really amazing because the children all sat together. They didn't have parents sitting between them. They had rows of children up near the front, and that was kind of interesting. Clearly, the congregation had outgrown their space, and they are going to be building a new sanctuary.
The group that I was with went up into the mountains to a more rural setting, and when we arrived, I don't remember the song, but it was a very, very familiar tune. So it was like Blessed Assurance or some traditional song. And we were ushered in, and some of the people sat in the front, as indicated. I went back and was in about the 3rd row. And I was in front of a row of boys, probably 6 to 8. I didn't ever see any of them say anything or get in trouble or nudge their neighbor or whatever. They just sat there and were very intent. And I could get eye contact with a few of them, and I would kind of wave at them, and some of them would sort of wave back. Some of them were very stoic and didn't respond at all. But my impression of the worship was very similar to what we do here. You know, you have a song, you have a special music. The ladies went up and sang. They had an offering where everybody would walk forward, and I don't think they had coins, but they would put their bills into the baskets. Jay Whitmire presented the sermon, and then the local pastor would, before and after that, was almost like a cheerleader, you know, because he would say something and then everybody would respond just spontaneous, well, not spontaneously, but very joyfully responding to his comment. And then he would say something else, and then they would kind of echo back. And so there was a lot of enthusiasm. The sermon that Jay talked about was the fact that in some denominations you learn the line, the company line. As a brethren, you learn how to act and take care of people. And so I appreciated his sermon. And while the service was obviously Haitian, it had, I felt like it had very traditional types of a sequence of events that we might find here. Now, the church itself, the structure, was probably, if it were airlifted, it would probably sit within these 2 aisles. So it was a very small church. There were picnic park-type benches that were very new and shiny, and probably not any more uncomfortable than the pews that you're sitting in right now. But they were very joyful, and as we left, people would come up and shake hands. Some would wander off. You know, it wasn't anything that was mechanical in any sense. People were just reacting, and it was a good experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had a drummer up here this morning with our choir, and we also had a drummer with the choir at Okju, the worship service that Phil just described. That was the only accompaniment in that that the choir had. I thought it worked today. It worked there too.
Just a matter of thought. You've heard more than once about exuberance and spirit, and we look at ourselves here. Are you exuberant? Where's your spirit? And that's not a value judgment. It's just that it's different. You know, look at our heritage. We are white, Germanic. We come from probably European roots, most of us, and that's not been our style. Doesn't mean that we can't learn and bring something back. So just very quickly, what would you bring back from a Haitian worship service? What would you incorporate here?
I just said my incorporation.
As I thought about that question ahead of time, I was with Marty, and my question is it going to be Chris, Catherine, or Jerry? Because it was the pastor who played the drum. So is it going to be Chris, Catherine, or Jerry that are going to play the drum?
I don't know if I'd want to bring anything back. I liked what they had, but I think we have good worship too. The thing, though, that I had, and I think we skipped that question, and I really want to say when it says, what's the differences? The only difference I saw was the language. And that was something that was neat for me because I had been there before. My granddaughter, Laura, was with me, and she said, it bothers me that I can't speak to them. I said, no, but do a high five. And I put my hand up to the child, and I must have had 5 by me. So the rest of the trip, Laura kept doing high fives, and that was exciting to see that to the end, that they do understand a high five even if they don't know the language. The other thing I would hope is that we would try to encourage our younger children to, and older ones, I mean, younger than me, I look at, to take French, because a lot of them speak French. We don't know how to learn Haitian. But if you take French, you can talk to them. It was fun to see Kaylee trying to learn some of their language when she was there. She'd walk over and talk to them, and I said to Dale, I wish my ears could do that now. But that was exciting for me.
I think that I felt that the service did run very much the way we do. I just felt like everybody was singing when we all sang. Everybody participated, and we had a minister that presented. They sang more, which I really enjoyed, the choir when they sang, because they really were great. They did a really, really good job.
I'm not sure how well my idea will transfer, but when you pull up to this church, there are all sorts of cars in the parking lot. When you pull up to their church, there's 1 or 2 motorcycles, and that's it. In other words, everybody walks to church. Now, I'm not sure that that'll work here, but part of being on the properties committee, I'm getting an education in the maintenance of this structure. They have virtually no maintenance for their structure. In other words, their overhead is minimal. And so, from my perspective, if there's anything that we can learn from them, is that the church is not about maintaining this building.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. My role is to bring a brief report of some of the giving elements of our work together and lead us into the offertory. For the past 9 years, I've had the privilege to serve as a volunteer staff person for Haiti Medical Project. It actually has been quite a run. And during this time, some very significant support has come for that program from the McPherson Church of the Brethren. It started as son Paul took some leaps of faith in the wake of that awful earthquake that we talked about that killed 350,000 people in 2010. He and some colleagues had a one-week medical team intervention there, and out of that, those persons became point persons calling the Church of the Brethren to reach out and find some ways to provide some ongoing help to Haiti, way beyond the immediate disaster. And Paul both raised his voice and took some steps to make it happen. Before long, our congregation was involved as Paul and others hosted an international dinner in our lower level of this building that raised $7,000, enough to support 4 of the first mobile clinics in Haiti. And soon, McPherson Church of the Brethren was finding other ways to help and support and raise some substantial funds, especially in 2013, 2014, really helping this project gain some momentum and forward movement. And about 2 years ago, a couple from this congregation was moved by the effort that was beginning to help provide pure water in what we now have our 30 services communities in Haiti. And their desire became a starting point for the present efforts to address the debilitating reality of drinking contaminated water. We've seen some references to that already. And the resulting high infant mortality. And a strong new effort was launched here, including what's very familiar to us now, the produce sales, yard parties, water drops on the air, a golf tournament, that's a new one for me. All sorts of initiatives that people could imagine that would tend to bring some support some way to this important effort. Our current McPherson effort is to be completed by the end of 2019. It is pointed toward raising $100,000 at least for water projects. And to date, $86,710 have been received. Wonderful support. To date, what are we getting done in Haiti? We have provided a new reverse osmosis system of water purification in Croix de Bouquet, the city where the Brethren work is now centered. We visited there. In fact, we saw the finished product of that and received the gratitude of the congregation there face to face. Our funds are enabling 3 projects underway in the city St. Louis du Nord on the northern coast, a community served by a strong Brethren school. We're helping provide water projects there in 3 scattered neighborhoods of this city by the end of the year. And we've provided funds for our largest project yet to date to be this year, before the end of the year, in a town called Oanamente. It's on the border with Dominican Republic on the north end. So we have funds in hand or already sent along for these 5 projects to be done in this calendar year. And we're looking ahead to supporting 2 more projects for 2020. We see a well in Camp Perrin. It's a new congregation and service community out that long southern peninsula. And if we exceed our goal by about $3,000, we'll have the funds to help the Canaan community that was mentioned in the reporting. One of the communities we visited have their earnestly desired reverse osmosis system, and it'll be on the same lot with their new well and where they plan to construct their new church building. For the next 10 weeks or so, we'll keep a focus on these special needs we're working on. We want to finish this project well, and indeed we certainly will. And these projects are but a part of the outreach of the McPherson Church of the Brethren. Today's offering is for the basic ongoing focus of being God's servants in McPherson area and around the world, reaching out individually and corporately to needs around us. There is much to do. Let's continue to worship as we share our offering. Let us pray. God of life, God of blessing, God of grace, God of love, bless the gifts we share. May they be used in service to you. May they be used to work for a world that better reflects your goodness. May we continue to be righteous stewards of the earth's bounty. May we continue to serve your compassion and your justice. Amen.
All right, a couple more questions, a couple more people. This last panel talks about the social programs of the church that are there, and in particular, I guess I want to ask what parts of either the water programs or the other health programs made the biggest impression or left the biggest impression with you all.
I'm going to start by asking a question real fast. How many of you understand what the medical project is in Haiti? Just raise your hands. Cool. I didn't understand completely how we were facilitating the medical project in Haiti. And when we talk about mobile clinics, you know, I envision us helping to start more and more mobile clinics. And I didn't realize until we got there and got to see that it's one group, one mobile clinic that goes out, 20 or 40 weeks, 40 weekends, out of the year, these are people that have weekly jobs that go do their own thing, and they spend their weekends 40 weeks out of the year getting back together and traveling, filling up a truck with supplies and people, and traveling an hour, 2, 4, 6, setting up clinic for a day, and sometimes 2, sometimes even 3 days if they have the time to treat people. And, you know, here in the United States, we don't like to go to the doctor. There, 500 people will walk from the surrounding rural communities to get to that clinic that day because they may not see them again for a year or maybe a couple times during that year. So it really struck me that, you know, to understand what impact we are having, those mobile clinics or that mobile clinic that goes out will treat 200 plus people in a day. And that just really made a huge impression on me.
I'll say a little bit about the community health clinic that was held at La Ferrière, which is a monthly clinic there, held on the top of a mountain. There was a church there. There was a water collection system there. They collect the water that runs off the roof of the church. And they use that water for cooking and drinking. And there was also a large group of women there with their children sitting in the shade. It was a shady area, but they were also under a kind of a roof of some kind held up by poles. There was a woman talking, seemed to be teaching, seemed to be a professional woman. I don't know what she was teaching, but all these women with their children were intently listening. And I assume that they were learning something about nutrition, cooking, child care. And that lasted quite a while we were there. Also, a little further down the hill, there was some cooking going on. They were cooking some simple dishes that these women would be able to make at home out of simple ingredients. They shared samples of those with us. And they were cooking on open little charcoal grills. I also saw a little further down the hill, there was a 3-sided structure where there was a fire that had been going. I think this was an oven, a large oven for baking bread or whatever. But this reminded me a lot of a WIC clinic that we would have here in McPherson, where the women and children would come get their vouchers for food and go to a class and get some instruction. So that was one thing that was serving a large group of women.
I became aware because Jay Whitmire, who is Brethren Disaster Service for our district or for our denomination, was with us for most of the time, and I became aware that the Brethren BDM has been building houses to replace those that were demolished in the earthquake. And it's been a nice fit between that effort and the mobile clinics and the health clinics and so on, because some of the families who live in those houses now that have been rebuilt allow the clinics to use their houses for the clinic. They kind of move out for the day and their space is used then for clinics. I just thought that was kind of a really cool use of resources.
Yes, I'll also speak to the medical clinics and just a new appreciation that I developed for the model that we have. Many people, when they think of a physician going to Haiti, that we are there to provide the medical care ourselves. And while I had an hour and a half opportunity to do that, it just really reinforced how ineffective I am in that setting. I like to think I'm fairly competent here, but there I'm very incompetent. I don't speak the language. People would present with concerns of diseases that I don't ever see. Even one member of our own group was bit by a tarantula, and I really had never dealt with tarantula bites before either. So our model of employing Haitian physicians to see Haitians, to let that fuel their economy and provide better medical care is certainly a much better model than flying physicians from the U.S. to Haiti to do intermittent clinics.
So final question. None of us are experts. We were there for various amounts of time, but Haiti has so many obstacles, so many problems, so many issues. What do you see from your experience, from your limited experience there, what do you see as the biggest problem facing Haiti?
The biggest problem I would probably say in Haiti is the humongous gap between government and people. It's almost as if they're two different organizations, two different people. The government and the rich are their own communities separate from Haiti. The Haitian people are poor, and yet they are very rich in spirit and in their ability to overcome that obstacle and continue to work to rebuild. So the biggest obstacle is that separation gap of not having the assistance from their own leadership in their country, really.
I would agree with that. I also think that the water is an ongoing problem. Haiti needs many, 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 many wells. In the hills, there's no way to have a water system that connects one village with another because of the terrain, and there's no water in the hills, so you have to depend on collection systems. And without water, clean water, a lot of things just can't happen. So that's what I see. And seeing the wells that have been built was very satisfying. We've seen the drops of water grow here in our sanctuary, and before that it was the little paper dolls. But seeing the results that we actually have done something was great.
It occurred to me as we were there that the clean water is such a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad that we're able to help in that effort. But I see in the very near future, we need to start talking about a latrine system, some way to manage human waste, because there is no system at this point. And education is going to be a big thing, and the ability to help them learn how to handle their own human waste in a way that is economical, something that they can maintain themselves, I think is going to be the next step.
And I would echo the others, this lack of infrastructure and government corruption. And it's sad that we are really providing their infrastructure, their water system, their latrine system. It'd certainly be much more effective if that was a unified system provided by their government.
Thank you very much. If you would all please stand for the sending song.
Hallelujah.
God calls you. Will you answer, "Here I am"? Bandeye se veye u. May God go with you in your life. Amen.